What, you don't talk for 10 days? You don't make eye contact? You meditate?
What did we get ourselves into? Why?
My face felt sad.
Oh my God, it's so hard. I'm like about to die.
Oh, that's why these thoughts are coming up. I'm clearing them out.
It's amazing, right?
Yes,
and you feel
absolutely.
like, wow, I want to continue it.
Essentially, it is work.
It's like a brain surgery.
Yes, I made it day 2, made it day 3, made it day 4.
Coming out of it felt like coming out of a prison. I did it, I accomplished it. Hello, Carlie.
Hi. So I'm so keen to talk to you about Vipassana now that I've done it. And I've only done it, and I only finished 2 weeks ago, whereas you were...
It's been 6 months, yeah.
So it's pretty fresh for me, but not so much for you.
Yeah.
And we met about probably like, when did we meet? It was like November last year. And one of the first, when we were doing our teacher training for nervous system rewire in Ubud. And I remember one of the first things we bonded about was the fact that you had just done Vipassana.
Yes.
And I had been wanting to do it for so long. So I had so many questions about so many things. So now that I've actually done it, I have there's so many things I want to talk to you about.
And I'm curious to hear about your experience as well. We already exchanged a little bit, but I want to know more. And, because it's always very different when you talk to someone who actually did Vipassana, went through the same things as you did.
We both did it at the Bali Centre as well, the Goenka Vipassana Bali Centre. So I think from talking to some other people as well who have done it at other centres, there is some unique things about the Bali Centre which is also pretty interesting.
What is Vipassana, right? Because maybe not everyone knows. Vipassana is a 10-day meditation program where you stay silent for 10 days. You cannot talk in any way to each other, so there are other people doing it, but you cannot even look at each other or communicate any non-verbal information. And you basically meditate for 10 hours a day. Why did we want to do Vipassana? Because I feel like a lot of people go to Vipassana hoping for some sort of like a breakthrough. And I was one of those people as well. Spoiler alert, it didn't really happen the way I expected. But what was your reason for doing Vipassana?
Yeah, it's a funny one actually, because I first found out about Vipassana and what it was about 20 years ago when I was in my early 20s. I was about 22 and I was living in a share house in Sydney, and one of my flatmates, my share house flatmates who was about 4 years older than me, he went and did Vipassana in Sydney in the Blue Mountains. There's quite a famous Vipassana centre. And I remember he came back after doing it and I was like a 22-year-old, like, what?
Why?
What do you mean? Why? You don't talk for 10 days? You don't make eye contact? You meditate? So there was always this curiosity, but and I knew I always wanted to do it, but there was always this like, whoa, how could I possibly do that? That's so hard. And then I'd thought about it. He did it twice while I was living with him.
Wow.
He went back and did it. And then in about 2020, I'd planned this big trip to India and Nepal, and I was going to do it in India, which, by the way, I'm kind of glad I've done it in Bali now, because from talking to friends, the India one is very different, much harder. But then COVID happened and I couldn't go to India.
Yeah.
And then it was always on my mind. Like I was thinking about it often, like when will I do it? And the timing wasn't quite right. Because, you know, if you're working, you've got to take at least probably 2 weeks off work. Yeah. And then when I came to Bali last year and talking to you and some other people in our training course who had done it at the Bali Centre, and I'd found out that you have your own room in the Bali Centre, albeit a very small little room, but great.
Yeah.
Because that was always something that deterred me. I was always worried about sharing a room. That just felt too difficult.
Imagine, like you cannot talk if someone snores, or like coughs. You cannot even say anything about it. So that's what bothered me.
It's hard. And some of the sites, centres are actually dorm rooms. The one in Sydney is, I think, 2. Some of them are dorms. And then the other thing, when you and others told me there was, you get your own room. And then I always was so worried about having to sit like just on a cushion for 10 hours a day meditating. I always was so worried about getting pins and needles in my legs, sore back.
Yeah.
But then you told me that you get lots of props.
Yeah.
There's actually lots of cushions and things you can use, and you can ask the teacher for a backrest. So those two things combined, I just found myself applying one day. And then all of a sudden I was like, okay, this feels right. I'm doing it.
Yeah.
And then there I was. It was so... I guess I always wanted to do it because it was something that I was always really interested in doing. I'd meditated, tried very different styles of meditation, and then I always was just waiting for when the feeling felt right.
Yeah.
And
The
And it
time was
Yeah,
right.
the time was
Yeah.
right. What about you? Why drew you to it?
Yeah, so I've been having kind of an interesting period of my life. So I've been into yoga for a long time and meditation as well. And for the past, let's say, a year or so, I've been having, yeah, a lot of transitions because I realized that I cannot live the life that I was living. So I had a burnout at work. I had a burnout of life, kind of, in a way. And I think I was searching for answers, like what should I do with my life? And Vipassana seemed like a perfect thing to do when you feel lost and you want to figure out what's next. And I had this illusion that, Vipassana will give me all the answers and all the insights, and I will come out and I'll be like, yes, I know what I want to do with my life. Like now I know. But yeah, in reality, it was quite different because it gave me a lot of things, but just it wasn't this immediate insight, It was more like instruments and tools. It gave me to then later make the right decisions about my life. But yeah, I came there completely lost, and I've been hearing it a lot about it for the past 2 or 3 years. Like my friends have done it, and they've been always telling me how of a life-changing experience it is. It was always in the back of my mind. And then, when you're in this lost period of your life, this is something you're drawn to, right? Because you're looking for answers. And I think a lot of answers are actually within. And yeah, so
It's interesting, isn't it? Because I've spoken to so many people over the years who have done it, family members, friends, and everyone has a totally different experience. And people who have done it multiple times have very different experiences each time.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of us do go in with a little bit of kind of a wish, it's going to have this major breakthrough.
Yeah.
And we don't all get that. But I think you get something, you get what you need at the time from
You
it.
get what you need. But yeah, you might have expectations. And I think also like one of the best things is to go without expectations, right?
Yes.
Because every experience is different. And if you come there thinking, yeah, my experience will be like this, I will get this, like, no, you will get what you need, not what you think you will get. And that's an interesting
And
thing.
what was your first impression when you got there? Like when you arrived, were you nervous? Like what did you...
Yeah, I remember I was very nervous. I had this feeling, a bit heavy feeling in my chest because I knew it wouldn't be easy. I knew it wasn't a retreat.
People often call it a retreat. I found myself calling it a retreat
Yeah.
to friends who were
It's
asking about it.
not.
And I'm like, there is nothing luxurious about it. Why do I keep saying retreat?
It's not a retreat, right? It's a quite intense program. So I knew this. I had this a bit heavy feeling in my chest because I knew I knew it wasn't going to be easy, right? Coming there, I already felt this anxiety and I knew it's going to be challenging for me. And spoiler, it was challenging.
When you arrived, when you got there, was it what you expected? The setup?
I didn't have any expectations about the setup, so I cannot tell you much. Like it was interesting because you had to, once you arrive, you have to give your phone away, you have to give away your books, laptop, everything, right? So you don't have any distractions basically. So it was interesting, but I don't think I had any expectations. What about you? Because I know you said you have some story about that.
Yeah, I was very nervous in those days leading up, and one of our friends, he had just done it the 2 weeks before, so I met up with him. He'd just finished and I met up with him like the day after, and then the day after that I was starting. So it was interesting hearing a little bit from him, but I didn't want to hear too much.
Yeah.
But I was very nervous. I think I was most nervous about physical. I was worried I wouldn't make it physically, that my back would get too sore and my legs would get too sore and it would be too much. And I was also nervous because you hear a lot of stories about some people having huge things that come up, things like repressed trauma and things like that. And I was kind of worried that might happen to me. So I was nervous. And then when I arrived, I remember being in the car. It's about a 40-minute drive from Ubud. And the driver was talking to me and he asked me what I was doing. And when I told him, he couldn't believe this existed. He's Balinese and he was like, what? Asking me so many questions. It was really funny. But when I arrived, it did feel very calm there and nice. And I wasn't sure if we'd really get to talk to people beforehand because I've heard stories from friends a lot over the years that they didn't talk to anyone at the beginning until it finished at the end. So they had no idea who all these people were that they were meditating with, what nationality they were, all those type of things. But once I got there, registered, you fill out a form, they show you to your room, and then you kind of set your room up and then come back. Then kind of people are kind of nervously walking around, and I found I did chat to a few different people, which was nice because a few of the people I spoke to, the other women, one was sitting next to me in the dining hall because you have allocated seating, and one was sitting behind me in the meditation hall. So it kind of felt like we already knew each other for the next 10 days. But it was funny, once we got there, we're chatting, and then they say, okay, we're having a light meal at 6 p.m. So everyone goes into the dining hall at your allocated seat. And it's kind of like not everyone's really talking, but you are still allowed to talk. But you can feel the nervous energy. We all eat, we wash our dishes, we come back into the dining hall. You can see the boys, the men on the other side, whereas for the rest of the program, there's a curtain. You can't see them. So we all go back into the dining hall. And then one of the managers there kind of reads out a few things. Yeah. And then we all kind of look and we're staring at each other. So all the women and all the men are just like nervously staring at each other because the man is talking in the middle. But then suddenly they're like, okay, now you need to listen. And this voice, they play a recording. So it just feels like this voice is coming down from above. And we're all just like looking at each other nervously and realize, oh, we don't need to look at each other. We can just look to the side like there's a voice. And the way the voice was just reminded me, it was like telling you the rules, like you need to stay here for 10 days, you won't have your phone, you can't talk to anyone, all these rules, you can't do this, you can't do that. And I don't know, there was a lot of nervous energy, and it just kind of, in my head, I was kind of laughing because I was thinking, what are we doing? Like it's starting to get dark outside, there's this ominous voice talking, coming down, telling us we can't do all these things. And it kind of felt like we were on some reality show, like we were signing up to Big Brother and we'd all consented without knowing to aliens, like doing an experiment on our brains or something. Like that's what I was thinking. It was just so funny. And then the announcement finished and they said, okay, everyone walk outside now. And so the girls all walked out their side, the boys on their side. So now all women are walking outside and we just wait at the stairs at the bottom of the meditation hall. And it's dark by now and the moon's shining, but it's quite dark. And then our manager, who's like the person for the women that we're allowed to ask questions to about logistical things throughout the program, she stands at the top of the stairs and she's kind of already in silent mode, and she just says our names out one by one with the most quiet voice. So we're all like huddling around the stairs, it's dark, we're all nervous. And then one by one, we walk up the stairs and walk into this dark meditation hall. There's no lights on, and we find our seat where our name is and sit down. We all just sit there like, okay. And the men have come in their side. You can see them. They're on the other side. I didn't think you'd be able to see them actually, but you can. And then suddenly, again, a voice, which is Goenka, who, created this program, his voice just comes down. We're sitting in the dark and it's, he's got a lovely voice, but it was just so funny that he's just telling us all these things and basically saying, now you're in silence. Yeah. And then we started meditating, and then that was that. And I was just thinking, it was such a funny experience. Like, what are we doing? Yeah. So different to normal life. And I just giggled. I just thought that was so funny, that whole experience of going in there, it's dark, the voice that you just talk from nowhere, like Big Brother. So it was funny.
It would be funny to have that as a reality TV, imagine like everyone tells their story while they're in Vipassana, like what happened before and after. It would be cool. But you actually reminded me that, it was, as you said, this nervous energy. You could feel it. I think people are anxious because you don't know what to expect.
Yeah, absolutely. A majority of people are new. In my program, out of the 60 people, there was probably about 10 men and about 10 women who were old students, meaning they'd done it before, but the rest of us were all new. Yeah.
But it's a surreal experience. Like, what did we get ourselves into? Why are we doing it? Yeah.
And how was the experience for you? Like, it's 10 days, so you don't talk for 9 days and you break noble silence around 11 a.m. on the 10th day. But so there's 9 full days of not talking. But how was it for you?
Well, the way you say of non-talking, for me, the non-talking part was the easiest. Also, when my friends ask me about it, like, oh, how are you going to do it? Like, how are you going to not talk for 10 days? I'm like, guys, this is the easiest thing, not for me at least, right? Non-talking is the easiest part, because the hardest part is actually sitting there meditating for 10 hours a day. Yes. And, you get all sorts of physical pain. And I didn't think about it, to be honest. Like, I knew I was gonna meditate for 10 hours a day, but it didn't cross my mind that I will have to sit during this whole time. So it was physically very harsh, but also mentally very harsh. There were certain points in these 10 days, I think, because you sort of learn, in a way, different techniques throughout the day. So your experience as well progresses, let's say. And it was hard for me. I was just looking through my journal that I was doing every night, and actually we're not allowed to journal.
Naughty.
But oof, I broke some rules. But for me, actually looking back, I'm glad that I did it because I documented what I was feeling. I didn't write too much, but just a few notes, and now I could look back and see what actually was going on. And I could see that all the days from day 1 to day 7, I'm like, oh my God, it's so hard. I'm like about to die. It's, because at one point you meditate, I think on day 4, he introduces you this new actually Vipassana technique, right? And in that technique, you're not allowed to move. So you have to sit without any movement for at least an hour and a half, right? Because this is...
An hour, yeah, it's 3 1-hour sessions a day that
Yeah.
they encourage you to not move for that 1 hour, yeah.
When we couldn't move, and I'm the person that is always like, I need to adjust myself. I'm always a bit moving. That's, I think, how my nervous system is. So when I couldn't move, I was struggling a lot. And I think I was kind of even going into a panic mode because you're forced to be with your body. But I've been experiencing a lot of anxiety before. So I was stuck in this anxious body and it was hard. And every day having to face it. Like I remember on day 4, I was just crying, the tears were coming onto my eyes, and I realized that I cannot do anything about it. Like, of course, I do have a choice to get up and leave, but obviously I didn't want to do it. I wanted to finish it. So I was kind of like, forcing myself to stay there, crying, shivering. It was hard. And then yesterday I read my journal preparing for today, and I saw that day 7 was a breakthrough for me, where I was like, oh, I get it now, things are starting to get easier. So it took me a week to go through, quite harsh time, so that on day 7 I can finally get to the point I can actually meditate. And that was life-changing, because for me there was this major breakthrough that this panic or this nervousness or this anxiety that I'm feeling, it's also a feeling. And once I'm able to observe that feeling, it becomes less and it passes away. And since I had this realization, everything changed. And days 7, 8, 9, and I don't remember 10 if we meditated a lot. But all the left days for me, it was interesting. And I was looking forward to meditation because I was kind of getting to know myself more. But yeah, it was like this, a roller coaster.
Yeah, definitely a roller coaster.
Yeah.
100%.
How was it for you?
Yeah, it kind of similar. I remember my cousin actually has done it, and we messaged a couple of days before I started, and I said I was nervous, and he just said, trust the process. Just trust the process. Don't have any expectations. Listen to the instructions. Trust the process. And then another friend of mine, she said, who has done it in Spain, she said, it's like a date with yourself. Just imagine it as a date with yourself. It's just you there learning about yourself and learning this meditation. So those two things I thought about a lot when I was feeling anxious and nervous. I found physically it was hard. I found towards the end of the day particularly, because you'd have the 1 hour of meditation, then a 10-minute break, and then straight into the discourse, which is the recorded video of the teacher talking for an hour, and then you have a 10-minute break and you're meditating for another 45 minutes. I remember in the evenings I was in so much pain because you've been meditating all day, and I was so grateful. I would shower at night that the showers were hot and so powerful, and I'd just be under the shower, like on my shoulders and on my lower back. But overall, I didn't find the not talking hard either. That was probably one of the easiest things. I found actually, because with noble silence, it's not only just not talking, you're not allowed to make eye contact, you're not allowed to do any gestures, you're not allowed to make hand gestures, you're not allowed to smile.
No
communication of any description with the fellow meditators. And I actually found not smiling to be one of the hardest parts. I like smiling at people, and I found my face felt sad.
This is such an Australian thing to say. My face felt sad.
It's true, I guess, but I really did. I remember going into my room once and being like, okay, I need to smile, and just smiling in my room.
Did you?
Yes, getting like endorphins. And at the end, when it ended, actually, a few people said, oh, you're so serious. I'm like, no, it's just my face when I'm not smiling. I look serious, but I'm not. I wanted to smile.
But that's how everyone looked, right? Everyone seemed so serious.
Yes.
You kind of start to make observation about people, and you start to project what they might be like. And very often, you think they're a very serious person. They're meditating so hard, and then you talk to them.
And they're not, totally different.
Yeah.
And it kind of, to be honest with you, it got me a little bit down at times that everyone I looked at just looked so serious and not smiling, and we all looked miserable. Most of us, not everyone, but a lot of us looked miserable, and I don't think we were miserable at all times.
Yeah.
So it was kind of funny in that sense.
For me, it was normal. I'm used to people looking miserable around me because I'm from Eastern Europe.
It's funny, and one of the girls I met, she's from Switzerland, and she said, oh, I like that part. We don't smile to each other in Switzerland. That's what she said. So it was quite funny, similar thing. And there was times I felt that the pain was something. I found that Goenka says that a lot of people find day 2 and day 6 the hardest. Mm-hmm. I found 2 quite easy, like it was okay. Day 3 I found quite hard. I had moments when I was like, oh, okay, so yeah, I guess we just meditate. Like I was like, well, obviously, Carlie, we just meditate. But I was like, oh, so we just either are meditating, we're eating, or we're resting.
Yeah.
But the majority is meditating. And I even had a moment at about day 4 where I was like, why am I doing this? And I was like, I couldn't remember why I'm doing it. And I couldn't remember why any of my friends or family who had done it, why they did it and what their result was. There was moments I got waves of loneliness, which was interesting to sit with. And also ruminating thoughts. So one of the hardest things here is that you're taking away all distractions. So there's no phones, there's no talking to anyone, there's no going for a run, going for a walk, doing exercise, watching TV, watching content. You can't just eat what you want when you want. So in normal life, when a thought comes up that you don't want to deal with, you can distract yourself really easily. Yeah. But here you can't. And I guess that's one of the big points. You need to sit with your thoughts and observe.
Face yourself, actually.
Face yourself.
What's happening in your mind. You cannot escape it.
No, and because you've removed all the noise of work and all daily life noise in your head, by about day 2 or 3, there are thoughts coming up that you're like, oh, I don't really want to think about that.
Yeah.
But you're kind of forced to. And that's the whole point. Something we're taught during Vipassana is equanimity, which is not wanting a good sensation to start and not wanting a bad sensation to end, just to sit with what is and observe. So that was interesting. The first couple of days I found myself craving or going to pick up my phone. And I was dreaming about watching YouTube and things.
Really?
And I was like, whoa, okay, this is phone addiction. And that passed after about day 2. And I found not being able to do exercise. So there is a small area where you can walk. And in the girls section, actually, it's a bit larger than the men's, and you can kind of walk up this driveway as well. But it was all kind of funny. Like we were like zombies, really, just walking in silence around doing a loop of a path or just
same
walking.
Loop all the time.
I needed to do that because my body was just aching so much. And I was that person, actually, who was stretching all the time before we'll go into, especially once we started on day 4 doing the 3-hour sessions of not moving or trying your best not to move. I was stretching a lot. And it's funny, when I debriefed with my cousin, we were joking about this, because he was the same, about everyone's there stretching, doing warm-ups like we're about to go in to play like a grueling, hour and a half football game, when really what we're doing is we're going to sit.
And
we're
not
stretching
move.
And to sit and meditate, not move
That's
for
true.
1 hour, which arguably is just as hard. But everyone's there doing stretches, yoga stretches, like we're all warming up to go and sit down and meditate, which is just funny. And then the other thing I found hard was with my experience was I felt quite nauseous at times. Those last 3 or 4 days, I was waking up in the middle of the night really nauseous.
Okay.
And I spoke to the teacher about this, and he said that's the normal thing that can happen. And a few of the other girls I spoke to, it happened to them. And apparently it is just like releasing, like when you're doing different healing methods, you release, and the nausea was just releasing. I also went to the toilet, like urination was increased. I was going to the bathroom like 12, 13 times a day.
I think me too, but I thought it was just cystitis, you know? I thought I was blaming it on
Really?
it. Yeah, because it was cold when I was sleeping in bed. It was
Yeah.
quite cold. I was sleeping in
Really?
my clothes. The bed sheets were a bit damp, you know, from
Yeah.
the bit wet.
From
The humid, yeah. I thought it was me having...
No. Well, a lot of people had this as well. I was getting up sometimes 2 to 3 times a night, getting up. It was raining
Interesting.
and going to the bathroom. I spoke to the teacher about that. He also said that's normal. And a lot of people I spoke to at the end said that happened to them as well. But by the end of it, I was like, I'm sick of going to the bathroom because, you know, there's wet floor. It's like it's a mission to do. So that was funny. But yeah, it's a roller coaster. It's a roller coaster of feeling like you're loving it and you don't want it to end, to feeling like you want it to end.
You know, because once you get it, once you actually are in meditation, it's amazing, right?
Yes,
and you feel
absolutely.
like, wow, I want to continue it and I don't want it to stop. But to get to that point, it's just your brain really needs to get used to it, because the first 4 days you're just learning how to sit.
Yes.
And
Breathing.
and only on day 4 you're actually learning the technique, right? So, you know, when I thought, okay, on day 4 I finally got it, I can just sit and breathe, and then the technique is introduced.
Yes.
And that for me was like, damn, that became harder, you know?
So hard. And I actually spoke to the teacher on about day 6 because I was exhausted. That's another thing. I was exhausted the whole time, really.
Me too.
Because you don't have much time to sleep. It's only 7 hours and you don't actually sleep all of those hours. You can nap during the day and break time. But I was overthinking the technique. So the Vipassana technique is about body scanning and noticing sensations, observing them. And I was at first really talking in my head like, okay, going to the crown of my head. I feel a sensation here. I feel a sensation there. And I realized I was just overthinking it. And when I spoke to the teacher, he's like, no, you're overthinking it. You need to just scan and notice. And that's when it became a lot easier for me.
Okay.
But I also found that I was so easily distracted at times just by people getting up, people moving. If I do it again, I really will focus on not being so distracted by what others are doing. And you're not meant to. You're not meant to be taking notice of what others are doing. But it's hard not to.
It's hard. It's hard, especially when people are coughing, sneezing. You know, people do things, right? And it's normal. But yeah, it's hard. But you mentioned you were ruminating on some things, right? What were those things for you? Just not that specific, but you know what?
So I just found that sometimes a thought would come up. Like, it was interesting. And this is part of the process. Goenka, the teacher, talks about this later on, like day 6 or 7. I was like, that's why this is happening. Just memories would come up or a thought would come up and I'd kind of think about it. It might be something that happened in a workplace 5 years ago and it was not a very nice memory, or something from my childhood, or something that more recently has happened. And I would find myself thinking about that and being like, why am I thinking about this? And then learning just to observe the thought and let it pass, let it release. And so I didn't have any major breakthroughs either, like, this happened or that happened, but I feel like I let go of a lot of things and I sat with some thoughts and really kind of had time to think about them and kind of analyze them in a way and observe them and let them go.
So it was different things that would come up.
Yeah, different things would come up, and then maybe I'd think about it over a few days. Something that did come up actually, which was interesting, is what we're doing right now. I kept getting this vision that you and I were going to debrief our Vipassana experiences, and that we'd film it. And so that's funny, when I came out and I asked you, I'm like, hey, do you want to do this? And you're like, yes. And I kept thinking about that throughout for some reason. It was a reoccurring thought. And a few other things like that, like I went in there wanting to get a bit of clarity about what I'm doing in the future.
Yeah.
I didn't get really solid clarity, like you got to do this, you got to move here, you got to do this job. But I did get clarity on some areas I really need to focus on. And I was thinking about that a lot as well.
Interesting. Because for me, it was one thing I was thinking about the whole time. It was literally, because I was expecting the same as you said. I would expect to have that experience. But for me, it was one situation that happened maybe like 5-6 months prior. And the whole 10 days, everything I was ruminating about was that one situation. Because I think it triggered me so much that, I had to basically think about it, right? And then get out of it, because I think it maybe was my trauma that came up. But yeah, it was crazy. I couldn't stop, day and night. It was just one thing, different scenarios, different like fantasies. And also that's what I noticed actually, that a lot of my thoughts are fantasies. It's the stories I tell myself about what happened or what would have happened, and it's not the reality. And this is one thing that Vipassana taught me, is accepting the reality, right? So like a brain surgery, Goenka calls it a brain surgery actually, that you take out everything inside your brain and you can see what's inside, and then you can actually choose what you keep there and what you want to remove, right? So for me, I guess there was this major thing that wanted to come out, and I've been thinking about that.
It's interesting actually that you say the brain surgery. Goenka often would say, you're committing to 10 days of doing brain surgery.
Yeah.
And that was another thing that made me feel like it was a reality show. Like, what are we doing? And then he often, every night when we listened to his talk, he would talk about doing the work. He would refer to it as work.
Yeah.
The meditation was work. And I remember thinking about that a few times, even though that when I asked the assistant teacher that is there in the room to help you, he said, it's meant to be easy, meant to be relaxed. But essentially it is work.
Yeah.
It's not like we're relaxing and just easing into everything. There's a lot, we're body scanning. We're not just letting our thoughts just go off and about things. We're really in the now, the present.
Yeah, and what they say happens is when your brain doesn't have any distractions, doesn't have any task, any phone to look at, your default network mode in your brain turns on, which means kind of the default neural pathways that are there, they just become more prominent, right? Because you cannot distract yourself from them.
Yeah.
So when you meditate, the network basically lights up, right? So you can really see what are the most common thoughts in your head. And that's why all the traumas come up. He calls it sanskaras, right? So he calls basically, I guess sanskaras is like traumas or things that need to come out. They come out through meditation, and you become, your brain becomes, how can I say it, like cleaner?
You're clearing it out, as he says.
Yeah.
And I think with the sankaras, when he was mentioning that a few days down the track, I realized, that's why these thoughts are coming up. I'm clearing them out.
Yeah.
And it was nice to know that actually. Like we're
doing the
work. And you do feel a lot lighter at the end of it.
Yeah, that's true.
It's interesting for me. It's only been 2 weeks since I finished, and whenever anyone asked me how it was, I felt like this when we first came out, and I still kind of feel like it now. It feels like a dream.
Yeah.
It absolutely feels like a dream. It's like, did I really do that? Did we all sit there and do that for 10 days? And I was chatting to a friend about this, and she said, well, that makes sense, because when you're meditating, you're engaging a part of the brain which is the same place where you dream. And so it makes sense that it does kind of feel like it was all a dream.
Yeah.
And
that's cool.
Even though, there were times where it was really hard, it is kind of like now just doesn't really feel like it was that hard.
Yeah, I was telling you this analogy, right? It's the women that give birth, and it's obviously hard, and it's, you're bleeding, etc. And then, after it passes, you're like, yeah, I'll go for another one. You forget all the trauma, all the challenges. And the same with Vipassana, I'm like, yeah, it wasn't that bad. While, if I think about it, it was quite challenging, and then you forget.
You do. What did you love about it? Like, what were things that you really enjoyed about doing it?
I enjoyed coming out of it.
Finishing
it, this feeling that I did it, I accomplished it. No, it was amazing, because to be honest, coming out of it felt like coming out of a prison, because it did feel like a prison. First of all, a prison of your own mind, because you're stuck with your thoughts, you're stuck with what's inside, but also kind of physical prison as well, because you're in a limited space, right? You're in a limited territory, and you can, right? But then you will disrupt your program. You cannot leave that territory, and you do not belong to yourself, because you have a fixed schedule. You wake up at 4:30 a.m. with this gong, gonging, and you go and actually you wake up at 4, and then at 4:30 you're already in the meditation hall meditating, and you don't, your schedule doesn't belong to yourself. You have a scheduled fixed hours for breakfast and lunch. The rest of the time you're meditating. you cannot choose where to go to eat, it's the food that they give you. And you actually eat from this, I still have a picture, from these metal plates that look like what they show in the movies, the plates from prison. Yeah. I had this relief, to be honest, because, it felt like coming out of prison. But of course, I'm joking, but yeah, what I loved about Vipassana, beside the finishing part, was I think the philosophy, because for me it really changed how I see life. It changed how I react to things. And there was just a major breakthrough for me in terms of how I think about life.
Totally. There were so many things that I actually loved about it. I love the camaraderie. I love that we're all in it. We're all there. I loved getting up. Yeah, like you said, the gong. It's a gong noise that's recorded, and that goes off before any time where you need to be anywhere. The gong goes off at 4 a.m. Most people, you don't have to get up for that morning session, but most people do get up and start meditating at 4:30.
Yeah.
And I loved getting up at 4:30, going into the meditation hall. A lot of people are already in there. It's dark. It's 4:30, it's cold, we're all snuggled up in, our sarongs and different things, hoodies. And I love that we're all sitting there meditating together, the guys on one side, the girls on the other, and the sun coming up, it gradually getting lighter and lighter. And I just love that feeling of us all being there meditating together.
That's cool. Yeah.
And we're all in it together. Like, it was obvious that all of us were probably struggling at some point in time, but we're all in it together. We're all there. And I loved that. I love that camaraderie and just all being there.
Yeah.
I also loved being in that little routine. Like, yes, we couldn't choose the schedule, but it was not thinking about it. It was nice not thinking about what we need to cook for dinner, what time we need to do this, who we need to do this. It was nice just knowing that this is the schedule. I quite liked going up and sitting in the meditation hall on my little seat that I'd created with all the props. Even though there are times at the Bali Centre where you are allowed to meditate in your room, and then there's the 3 mandatory hours that you need to meditate in the hall. I found that I was meditating in the hall majority of the time. I would at times go back to my room and lay down just to stretch my back out for about 10 minutes. And then on the breaks, I'd often walk and then lay down for a bit. But I loved being in the hall. The Bali Centre's really nice as well. And it was just nice being there.
With the nature, right? Like the jungle.
The other thing I loved is I am just so proud of myself that I did it. It was an accomplishment. That was a huge takeaway for me. I've been thinking about it for 20 years. Those first 15 years of knowing that Vipassana existed, I didn't feel ready. I was scared. I felt like it was just like a mission impossible. So many people I told just now when I went back home to Australia over the Christmas time were like, what is that? Just like, I could never do that. Just reiterating how hard it sounds. And I was just so proud of myself that I finished it.
And you should be,
And every night I remember having my shower, getting into bed, tucking myself into the mosquito net and looking up, laying on my back and looking up at the mosquito net and being like, yes, I made it day 2, made it day 3, made it day 4.
Yeah.
Just really proud of myself that I did it. And focusing and learning the meditation technique is not easy. Like, it takes a lot of focus.
Yeah.
At times you do just want to get up and be like, no, I want to go distract myself. I want to go, give me my phone.
Sometimes it's easier even to start thinking about something instead of meditating.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Like, the time passes by so much faster if you just start thinking about stuff.
And sometimes I would be in a 1-hour group sitting and I would find myself not doing one body scan. And I was off thinking about all sorts of things. And I was like, Carlie, stop doing this. And I was like, okay, you can do this. Just do one body scan, at least do one. Yeah.
And about the body scan, so what I learned later is that we have this part of our brain which is called insula. And once you do the body scan, it basically trains that part of the brain and it increases it, meaning that your connection between the brain and the body becomes stronger and stronger. So what we're actually doing this whole 10 days is that we're training our brain, we're making stronger certain parts of the brain, right? So that we can, instead of those default neural pathways, right, we can really strengthen the other pathways that might be more useful to us in the daily life, right? Like connection with our body, for example.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was really interesting. What did you find hard?
Well, I think I already mentioned everything. Everything was hard, but, for me, I did a very big mistake Because I did
What?
Vipassana on the second day of arriving to Bali.
So you
I had jet lag.
Oh.
So when it was 4 a.m. that we had to get up,
Yeah.
it was 10 p.m. in Europe,
Nighttime, bedtime.
bedtime, you know. So it was so hard because I wanted to sleep. I was like, what am I doing here? This gong, you know. So a few times I actually slept through breakfast and the gong didn't help.
You didn't even get up for breakfast.
Well, they came knocking on my door, right? So when you don't come to the meditation hall or to
a mandatory
breakfast,
activity.
they come and they will find you, you know.
Yeah,
so
because they're
did,
worried about you and they'll come and get you.
So they did find me.
Wow, I didn't know that. Because you were just so tired.
Yeah. And then, you know, the whole schedule was just messed up. So I don't recommend doing it with a jet lag. Just, you know, wait a few days.
Yeah, if you can.
Yeah. What about you?
Yeah, the physical aspect was hard, definitely. There were times where my lower back on the right-hand side was just aching. And I kind of knew it would because I've had injuries before and just knew that would happen. And during the 1 hour mandatory sits, there were many that I did. I sat for 1 hour without moving and I was really proud of myself. And then there was some times where my lower back was aching so much. And I spoke to the teacher about this and I said, look, I'm just trying to observe. Mm-hmm. He said, if it's excruciating pain, move. You don't have to stay still.
Okay.
If you need to move, we don't want you to be in excruciating pain. So I found that if the days towards the end where I did sit and not move, my back was sore for the rest of the day. Mm-hmm. So I usually did for the first one in the morning. And then sometimes I did move like 45 minutes in. I just moved my leg out to
I did as well.
A bent position. And you're allowed to do that, which is good to know.
Speaking on that part, sorry, I just wanted to add, because for me also the physical aspect was super challenging. I had a lot of back pain. But when I started to observe it, as you said, the pain in the back led me to different spots in my body.
Right.
So I had this pain on the right side of my back. And then when I started to observe it, when I learned how I can observe it without hating the pain, because the mind basically creates this extra suffering, right? By not just experiencing the pain, but also hating on the pain. But if you just try to observe without hating, I realized that this pain, it goes all the way here to my front belly, sort of underneath the ribs. And I was like, okay, I'm going to observe this spot now. And once I was observing this spot, I realized that a lot of emotions started to come up. You know, because they say that here where our gallbladder and liver is, this is where anger is stored and suppressed. So and I didn't know that before, but when I was focusing on this part and observing it, a lot of anger would suddenly come up. And I was like, at first I was like, what's happening? Why do I feel so angry, you know? And then I started to observe different parts of my body. And I realized that in different parts of my body, different emotions are stored.
Yeah.
You know, so here for me was anger, here was kind of hurt. So whenever I would focus on the pain here, I would feel like so hurt. And yeah, that was such an interesting experience to go through, realizing that our body
holds so much emotion.
Yeah. And they say it's actually fascia, right? That holds fascia?
I say fascia.
That holds the trauma and emotions. And I felt it. I lived that experience.
Yeah, that's interesting. And it is interesting how we hold emotion in different parts of our body and then clearing that emotion or observing and releasing that emotion releases the pain in your body.
Exactly. And the pain started to get less every day. For me, it was like mind-blowing.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I found I was tired constantly and like exhausted. Some mornings I was so tired in the mandatory, like the group sitting at 8 a.m. I remember there was one morning where I was feeling really nauseous, like I was going to need to vomit. I didn't, but I felt myself nodding off and kept catching my head. So I ended up there was 2 other cushions next to me and I just put them on top of my knees and then I just put my hands like this and just meditated like this so my head would stop falling down.
Yeah.
So that was really hard at times. I think just not being able to talk was sometimes hard. So what happened with me is I accidentally spoke.
Did you?
So on about day 4, I went in and spoke to the teacher, the assistant teacher, and you can make a booking to do that and you get 5 minutes to ask him questions. So that was the first time in 4 days that I'd spoken. Mm-hmm. So I went in, chatted to him for like 3 minutes about the back pain I was having and things like that. And as I came out of the hall, the girl who was next in line, she went to walk straight into the room. But I knew that they were alternating between the women and the men. And a man had just walked in. So she couldn't go in.
Yeah.
So my immediate reaction, I whispered it, but I was like, oh no, there's someone in there. And then I was like, she looked at me like, and
What
I was
have
like,
you done?
and then I just kept walking, and I walked into my room like, oh my God, I've just spoken, I've just broken. Oh my God, she'll think I'm not taking it seriously. Oh my God. And then I thought, you know what, it's fine. Like, it was an accident. I didn't mean to do it. But then about, I don't know, day 7 or something, because it rained a lot, which didn't disrupt anything. There's so many umbrellas. It was kind of nice. But I was coming up the stairs to the meditation hall for one of the sessions. And as I got to the top of the stairs, it was so foot slipped and I kind of lost my footing. And I was like, oh my God, slippery. And I said that. And I was like, and I looked behind me and it was the same girl behind me. And I was like, oh my gosh, she probably thinks that I'm just this girl that just talks all the time. When really, yeah, it was accidental. And then it was hard sometimes just navigating not talking, like in terms of letting someone in the line.
That's true.
Like at one point, like the bananas ran out and I wanted to give a banana to the person next to me. And I was like, but that means I'm talking to her. But I should have just put it on there. So, yeah, that was tricky at times. And like I said before, the not smiling was hard.
Yeah.
And just getting through it some days, like realizing, oh, we're here, we're meditating, that's that.
Yeah. It's hard. You know, for me, I also remember that I actually had a proper panic attack at one point.
Really?
Yeah, because, you know, when you learn Vipassana technique, I think I mentioned before, but when you learn Vipassana, you scan your body. Yeah. And when your body is not safe, when it's anxious, when your nervous system is sort of in the alert mode, and you have to be in the body, right? And you cannot move. And I started to panic. I think it was day 4. I was crying. I was shivering, you know, I was literally like shaking actually at one point. And I thought, you know, I will die or something, because when it's panic, I just feel complete panic and my body doesn't feel safe. So to be honest, what I did have to take like anti-anxiety medication that day. And again, I broke a rule because you're not supposed to take any medication. But I do
nothing that's not prescribed. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, yes.
Like, I think people are still allowed to take medication that they have for, I don't know,
like the daily medication, but no, you know, like extra.
Yeah, like Panadol, pain relief and things. Yeah.
I did take it, and it did help me, because if I didn't take it, you know, I went to my room even, and I kept feeling this anxiety, and it couldn't go away. And actually, we had one girl that was sitting next to me. She had similar experience, I think, because I was in the same group with it, talking to teachers to her, because every day we could talk to teachers for like 5 minutes.
At the end of the night?
At the end of the session, right? So we could ask them.
Oh, really? Oh, that was different to ours. We could only speak to the teacher at the end of the night. After it was ended, you could wait there and talk, or you could book in an appointment time to see him.
Oh, we spoke during the day as well.
Oh, yeah, different. I think some teachers, it is a little bit different depending on the teacher that you have.
Yes, we were in the group after morning meditation. We could talk to the teacher and ask them questions. And there was a girl in my group, and she said the same thing, that she was experiencing huge panic attack. And I saw her because she was next to me. She was crying, shivering, going through something major. And in the end, she did leave, you know, because a lot of people in our Vipassana program actually did leave. I think we were maybe 60, is it in total?
It's about
60 people. We were only women, which is also different than yours.
Yeah, that was actually a key difference between mine and yours, that you were all women. So there's 2 separate sides.
Yes.
And for me, the men were on one side, women on one side. And the only time you saw them once we'd started was we were in the meditation hall together. Yeah. And there was about a 1.5 meter gap between female and men. But you actually were all women.
All women.
And you could go into both sides. You were allowed to walk over into the women's side and the men's side, because there was just women there.
So it was bigger space, bigger territory for us, actually. Around maybe, 10, 15 women left.
Really? That many?
A lot,
out of 60? Yeah. Wow, yeah, interesting.
And I saw a lot of people struggling, and because things come up, you know, you have to be prepared for it.
And it's interesting too, because when we are allowed to talk to people and we're encouraged to talk to people in that last afternoon, some people was like, that was the hardest thing I've ever done. But you remember looking at them, if it was a female, you could see them be like, oh, you couldn't tell that it was really that hard because we're all, I actually thought, my expectation was that I'd see people crying all the time because a friend of ours had done it a few months before, and she said she literally cried almost the whole time.
Wow.
And it was a release for her. So I just expected that I'd see people cry a lot, but I didn't see anyone ever cry. Obviously, people probably did cry, and they probably cried in their room, or they cried while we're meditating, and you're not looking at people while you're meditating. But everyone kind of just looked like you didn't really know what was going on inside. You could kind of tell sometimes there was some people just looked a little bit like they were having a harder day and acting a bit abruptly on certain days.
And for some people, they came out and they're like, wow, that was so easy, you know. I do know people for whom it was actually easy. So it really, everyone's experience is so different, and that's why I'm like, yes, be prepared that things can come up, but also don't have expectations, because in the end, maybe it will be so easy for you. You
don't know, and then you could go and do it again, and it could be quite hard.
Exactly. I actually, a friend of mine experienced that, She did it 2 times, it was quite easy, and then on the 3rd time.
Yeah. Another thing with the Bali Centre, actually.
Yeah.
And I don't know if this happened when you were there, I assume it did, but there was a pig farm right next to.
Was it pigs?
It's pigs, and they were so loud, and there were times where we were like all meditating often, almost every day. You could tell when it was feeding time, like in the morning and then in the night, and there was just these loud pig noises, like they're quite close, and like all these noises, and you're like, are they enjoying this? Are they not? It sounded like they weren't. But then you would hear gunshots, and then one day we were all in the group sitting, all silently, peacefully meditating. And then there was the really loud squealing noise for about 5 minutes of all the pigs. And then there was this really loud bang. And it sounded like one of them got shot, because I'm sure they probably do get killed at times. And you could just feel everyone like tense up slightly, like the energy. And it's just like one of those reminders that like, we're peacefully meditating, but there's reality. There's it was kind of an interesting life perspective that there's peaceful meditation and there's still stuff going on outside.
Right next to it, right?
Right next to it. And it was every day you could hear these noises. Another thing that was quite interesting that I didn't expect, actually, a friend had mentioned that Goenka on the recordings, that he chants.
Yes.
And when he first mentioned that to me, just before I went in, actually, I was like, oh, do we chant like a kirtan? And he's like, no, you don't, he does. And it's quite funny at times. I'm like, oh. And then I just didn't think about it. But then the chanting, I grew to really like it, but it was so funny that Goenka starts off every meditation session on the recording of him chanting all these different prayers and different things. And some of them go for like 5 minutes, and a teacher will play it just before the session ends as well. And that's when you know, okay, it's ending. But sometimes it's the 5-minute one, and sometimes it's the half an hour.
We don't know.
Maybe there's some method to it, but I didn't figure out what that method was. So, and it was so funny sometimes where we're all deep in meditation, and then the chanting starts, and it's like, duh, like this, and you could feel everyone kind of like jump. And at a few points, I think I like literally physically jumped because it scares you.
Yeah,
it was really funny.
But you know, because for me, it was at first I thought it was a signal that meditation is ending, right?
Yeah.
Okay, they are singing, going
and
to
I think
singing.
it is, but it
is, but sometimes it was 30 minutes. I was like, oh my, because I was expecting it to end, and then it's another 30 minutes. Like, oh my god.
Absolutely, I think in the morning sessions, like it was the half an hour one. Yeah, it was funny.
But there was one thing that everyone, not everyone, but a lot of people talk about in my Vipassana, and I know in your Vipassana, and I know other people also. And I think about day 4, maybe, you start to feel horny.
I actually didn't talk about that to anyone else in my group, but I remember you told me that.
Yeah.
And you and our other friends said it happened to him as well.
And our group discussed it, you know.
Like, and I do remember that happening to me around day 4. And like being like, oh, why am I thinking about these things? And then it passed, but I laughed to myself because I remember you and our other friends talking about that. Yeah. That was funny.
You had actual boys there.
Yes, we had boys.
You know, and we didn't.
We had men there.
We didn't. We were only women.
Yeah.
And, you know.
It must be something. Yeah, I wonder what the reason behind that. I actually think, because I almost did it the same time as another friend. Yeah. I actually think it was better for me not to do it. Mm-hmm. I thought it would be nice to know someone else is there with you. But I actually think I would have, every time we went into the meditation hall, I would have looked over to see if he was there. I think it would have been more of a distraction for me if I knew someone before the course started.
That's what I did. I did it with a friend.
You did, didn't
and
you?
I was looking at, if she's there, is she okay? But it did give me a sense of peace because you're so disconnected from the world. You don't know what's happening. Like the war could start and you have no idea, right? Because you're there meditating. But at least knowing that there is someone a friend, and it just gives you this sense of comfort. And yes, I was looking for her all the time, but every time I would find her with my eyes, I would be like, okay, it's all she's there. So for me, it like that they did it.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
Going back on what you said about how there was about 10, 15 people that left in your group for a variety of reasons. And who knows, you don't get to talk to them when they leave, so who knows why they actually left. But that is something that's important to know, actually, because Vipassana isn't always easy. And not everyone makes it through the 10 days, which is totally okay. And I found really hard is I saw someone struggling a lot. And I saw their behaviour change and their just demeanour really change over the last few days. And for me, it really did look like this person was going into some kind of psychosis and disassociating. And it was really quite sad to watch. And eventually this person left early, but it was quite hard to be present in that because I really wanted to help this person, but it felt like they were really struggling. And I do hope that if someone ends up in that scenario and maybe starts disassociating or going into a psychosis or having major panic attacks, that it is easy for them to leave, that they can say, I want to leave, and they can. And I'm not sure. I think sometimes people are kind of talked into staying longer when maybe it is better that they do leave immediately.
Because the philosophy is sort of anicca, which means everything passes, just observe it, be with it, it will pass away. But if you're going through a major trauma or, mental
trauma.
issue, it will not, go away. You need some medical support and help. And that's what I found as well, a bit contradictory, right? Because it's not very trauma informed, if I can put it that way.
And, you and I have done that course together last year where it was all about nervous system rewiring, regulation and traumas and different things. And there was so much support because anything can come up. And I think with Vipassana, it is quite a harsh rip the Band-Aid off experience, and there isn't that much support. I thought that there would be more support if you wanted to go and talk about your feelings and how you're feeling with the teacher or the manager that's there to support you. But it really isn't really like that. You don't have that much time to talk to them. So I think for some people it is really hard. And I've done some research since doing it, and there are a lot of stories of repressed trauma coming up for people. Perhaps there's mental health challenges that they didn't know existed and they've come up, or they have had challenges in the past, and that's really, this process has exacerbated that. It is a harsh process in terms of you're in it, you're not talking, you've got no support really. And I did witness someone really challenged by that, and now since doing it I've researched and found that there are a lot of people that have had that experience. So it is something to think about. It's
not for everyone.
And if you do struggle and you feel like you can't get by and you talk to the teachers and you're just not feeling right, my advice would be to leave and to go and get the support that you need, because it can be really challenging, and most people have no idea if that's going to happen to them or not.
You don't know. And as you said, it's not for everyone because it's very harsh stripping the Band-Aid off, but there are other methods that are much gentler, right? So there are other methods to work with your mind, to work with your body, like moving meditation, yoga nidra, I don't know, there are so many
things to get to that same space.
Exactly. You don't have to, go on this very strict regimen and meditate in this strict without moving, because it's harsh and it can sometimes do worse than better.
It can. It really is a personal preference. So I have been thinking about this a lot. If people ask me if they should do it, if I recommend it, my advice is that it's a personal decision. When you fill out the application form, my recommendation is that you are honest about if you have had any mental health challenges or illness and actually write that, because I know a lot of people don't write that because they're worried they won't get accepted into the program. But I think it's important to put that down. And I also think that if you do have any challenges in your life, or you have maybe been challenged by anxiety or depression or any form of mental illness, speak to a professional first before you do it.
Yeah, because you will probably have to face it by yourself.
And it's not for everyone. And maybe if you've got a therapist or a psychologist, they might say, okay, I think you can do it, but if this happens or this happens, they're your warning signs that maybe you need to leave.
Exactly.
So I think it's a personal decision. I wouldn't recommend it to everyone. I think about it and be sure that you know what it's about, and that if you've got any challenges, that you speak to someone about that beforehand.
Yeah, because as I think I mentioned to you that it's a very masculine practice, but masculine not in the way that it's for men, right? But masculine, because in yoga there is a masculine wing and the feminine wing. And the masculine one is really harsh, strict, disciplined practices, which is also good to have for the mind. But then there are also feminine practices, which are more flowy and less strict and more on the connection, more on the, how can I say it? Yeah, just less strict, I guess.
Yeah.
And then, you can choose. There are other ways. There are different ways. Yeah. Because I know that's another thing for me that doesn't bother me about Vipassana, but what a bit like, because they say it's kind of the only way, Goenka mentions it in a way that Vipassana is the way. Like, do Vipassana, that's the only sort of meditation technique you need. And for me, I'm like, yes, it's a great technique. I loved it. It changed my life. Like, Vipassana did change my life. But there are other techniques. There are other ways. There are other things that maybe are more fitted for different people.
True. Yeah, I agree. So for us at our centre, on the 10th day, you, after morning meditation, and they teach you a technique called metta, which is all about feeling grateful and love and compassion. And then once you finish that session, everyone walks outside and you're allowed, noble silence has ended, so you're allowed to speak.
Yeah.
How was that for you?
I remember that moment very well, because I was coming out of the meditation hall and I heard girls laughing and talking, and I cried because there was the joy of hearing people talk, of hearing people laugh. I was like, oh my God, I cannot believe it. I think there was also joy knowing that it's finished, sort of the hardest part, but also just the joy that you hear other people. And what you said before, that you didn't smile, so everyone was very serious, and then you see them smiling and laughing, and it's the greatest joy. And then I could hug my friend, and we just kept hugging because it felt so good to have the human connection again.
Yeah, I agree. It was really interesting because for us, we all walked out of the meditation hall and it was like, okay, is noble silence ended? And then it just started pouring with rain. So wherever you were when it started pouring, you were kind of stuck there for 10 minutes. And I was up near the dining hall, and I remember a girl, she looked at me and she's like, so we can talk? And I was like, I guess so. And then she just started downloading all about what she'd gone through. And I remember just being like, whoa, I need to really be concentrating here. This is a lot. I'm hearing so many words. And I was a bit like, I kind of feel like I needed a bit of a softer entrance into talking. Yeah. And then everyone's asking everyone, how was your experience? And I really couldn't put it into words. I just kept saying, it feels like a dream. I mean, it was hard, but then there was good parts and then there was hard parts. And even now, to be honest, explaining my experience feels
like a
dream.
This, or it's different, right? It's this and that.
So
it's
many things in one.
Yeah.
And it was interesting because the moment noble silence ended, the whole centre vibe changed. So suddenly you walk into the dining hall, the curtain's been moved, you can see the men again.
Yeah.
They've set up all these books. The two managers, so there's a manager for the females, manager for the males, or you would have had a manager for each females. And they're not the teacher, they're just there. They're the only person you can talk to if you want to ask logistic questions, like the light's gone out in my room, or is there mosquito repellent, things like that. I found with my manager, she were in noble silence. She wouldn't make eye contact with you. She'd just whisper minimal words. As soon as noble silence ended, she changed her personality and she's looking at you, she's talking, and you know, your
The energy felt lighter.
energy, and
no?
it was almost like,
like
it was over. It was almost like it
Yeah.
had ended. But the
Yeah.
thing is, it hadn't ended.
Yeah.
We still had that day of
Yeah.
still meditating, still doing all our things.
But it was easier, no?
Well, I actually found it interesting because, as you know, for us new students, we eat a meal at 6 a.m.
Yeah.
for breakfast, which is kind of like a buffet style. And then you eat lunch at 11 a.m. And then you have tea at 5 p.m., which is a couple pieces of fruit
Yeah.
and some tea, if you'd like the ginger tea or
For
green
old
tea.
students, there is no food at all for the evening.
Yes, and old students who have done it before, they don't get the fruit in the evening.
Yeah.
So a lot of people talked about being so hungry. I wasn't that hungry. There was times where I was craving food, for sure. I was craving pizza and cheese because it was basically a vegan diet.
Yeah.
You could have dairy milk in the tea in the morning, which I didn't have, and the chocolate sauce you could put on your porridge had dairy, but I didn't really eat that. So yeah, I found myself craving foods. And some people, when we spoke at the end, said they found the not eating dinner really hard. But on that final day, we had a dinner.
That's true.
And
true.
instead of just the fruit, we had dinner. And then we went straight into the meditation program, the evening program. I was so full. I found it so hard to sit and concentrate. And I was like, you know what? That's good that we
So
only
there is
have
a
the
reason,
fruit.
yeah.
Yeah, and we're not really burning any energy. So
That's
we were
true.
eating enough food.
Yeah.
So that was interesting. And I guess my question for you is, would you do it again?
Short answer, yes. A longer answer, I would definitely do the 1 or 3 days soon, because once you do the 10-day course, you're allowed to do 1 and 3 days. If you haven't done the 10-day one, you cannot do the shorter version. So I would definitely do the 1 and 3 day one soon. And then I think I will do the 10 days eventually as well, maybe in 6 months or so. So I think it's a good thing to do every year. You know, it's
Yeah.
like every year you stay with yourself, with your thoughts, you face what's happening inside. And I think every time you get new and new insights. So I would do it again, despite all the hard things, the challenges. It was just so life-changing for me. Because what it changed, and now, 6 months later, I can definitely see it. It's not like I came out and I was like, wow, I'm a new person. But it's more that now that I face situations in life, I have this space to observe before reacting. So it's like, you can live like this, and with Vipassana, you're like, I can see all my emotions, thoughts, reactions, patterns, traumas. Like you have this space, and then you can make better decisions in life,
Yeah.
right? So you know if your decision is coming out of fear or illusion, or if it's actually what you want. So after 6 months, at first I was like, yeah, nothing changed. Yeah, I mean, it was an experience, but, I didn't feel that different. But once I started to live my life and I started to notice the small things, the small things, that there is more space between situation and reaction. And that changes a lot. Even though it might seem like such a small thing.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a life technique that we've now,
Yeah.
a technique that we've now learned that is so valuable in life. And that's why were people of all ages there. I found that
Yeah.
really admirable. Like I was talking, there was some, both male and female who were in their early 20s. I spoke to a girl who was 20.
That's amazing.
And I spoke to a guy who was 25. And one of our friends who's done it's 25.
Yeah.
And there was a few other men that looked quite young as well, like 19, 20, 21. And I just thought, wow. And there was also someone there who, she was 78. And there was some men that I think also looked around that age. So there was all ages.
Yeah.
And I just think, especially when you're young, imagine if I had had the courage to do it in my
Yeah.
early 20s, like learning this technique.
And you still have neuroplasticity. Well, we still have it as well, but being younger, you have
Yeah.
even more neuroplasticity, right?
Absolutely. But you do it when you feel ready. And for
Exactly.
me, it was now. It's interesting you say you would do it again, because I remember speaking to you about maybe 2 months after you'd done it, 3 months
Yeah.
after you'd done it, and you were on the fence. You were kind of almost leaning towards, no, it's too much. I'm glad I did it, but I wouldn't do it again. So it's interesting how you change once you reflect more.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
think there is also the part that you forget.
You
the
forget,
struggles,
absolutely you forget. I've only been 2 weeks and I've kind of forgotten. Hasn't hit me. I would do it again. I'm actually, I know, and it's only been 2 weeks since I've done it, I actually want to do it again soon.
Yeah?
And it's funny that I want to do it again soon, because I just feel like now I know the process. I know what to expect.
Yeah.
Obviously, I could have a very different experience, especially if I do it in a different centre. But I know what to expect in terms of the program.
Yeah.
I know when we learn the Vipassana technique, when we do this, what the eating is, what my body's probably going to feel on this day, that day. You might feel this, you might feel nauseous, all those things. And I think I would be far more focused this second time around. And I feel like I only just took one layer of the onion off.
Yeah.
I feel like there's more layers that can be taken off, and I feel like Vipassana is a great place for me to do that. And so I'm kind of eager to do it again soon.
Wow.
Maybe I'll do it at the Bali Centre, maybe I'll do it at a different centre. It is interesting though, like we talked about, the Bali Centre is known as being a bit of an easier, if it can be, centre, because you do have your own little room. Very small, but it does make a difference. And it is a beautiful setting. And like we were saying earlier, the Bali Centre, there are mandatory sittings for meditation where you have to be in the hall. And then there's times where you're allowed to meditate in your room.
Which is half, basically,
it's
right?
Basically
so
half.
5 hours you have to be in the hall, and then 5 hours you can choose if you're in the hall or if you meditate in your own room.
Around that time, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's spread out throughout the day. So that does make it easier, particularly if you're not feeling well. Whereas there are some centres, like a friend did it in Sri Lanka, others did it in India, Spain, where you have to be in the hall for all meditation times. And if you get up to go to the toilet or something, or just walk and stretch your legs, they will come and get you and be like, no, come back in now. That is a lot harder. And also sharing dorms and rooms for some people is harder. My cousin said he enjoyed sharing a dorm because he really felt that like team building camaraderie. For me, I just loved being able to go into my own room and just lay on the bed and just have my own little space, be able to get changed, be able to turn the light on and off when I need to, just have my own little cocoon, even though I really only spent sleeping time in there and the break time. But I want to do it again soon. I feel that I probably want to do another 10 days soon as well, not even go into the 3 day or 1 day. So, yeah, look, that might change, but 2 weeks out, that's how I'm feeling right now.
2 weeks out.
Yeah.
And already eager to repeat. That's a good sign.
It is a good sign, yeah.
But yeah, as you said, every centre is different, a little bit different, right?
Even the teachers, by the way, when I was speaking to one of our friends who did it in the Bali Centre but had a different assistant teacher who guides the whole, his teacher didn't allow them, for example, during the evening discourse to sit against the wall.
Ours neither.
Yeah, and for example, we weren't allowed to just go up after every session and talk to the teacher. So I think it changed a little bit. I think at the Bali Centre you're always allowed to meditate in your room at times, but it is different.
Yeah, and for me that was a big thing because, as I said, I was having jet lag. So it was, for me, honestly, sometimes I would go to my room and I would fall asleep. I just needed it, you know, and I know that, it's in the end, it's your responsibility, right? It was my responsibility. Like, I did want to make the best out of it, as in take as much as I could, but at the same time, I had to make it also bearable for myself in a way, right? So if I was just completely dead, I would go to my room and I would sleep.
And you have to listen to your body in that case. Yeah. You could really feel at the end as well. We did a group photo and things that even though we hadn't been talking to each other for 10 days, our energies were with each other. We were all in it together and you could feel this closeness.
Yeah.
And I've already met up with a few people who have done it with me in my group, and we went and did ecstatic dance together. We've done this, and we've got this bond now.
Same, because I actually have a few very good friends now from Vipassana. You know, that even though we didn't talk for 10 days, we talked only for 1 day, right? But because you've been through the experience together, you already kind of like
and
bonded.
there's common grounds that you have that common
maybe values as well. In a way, right?
You all had something that made you want to do Vipassana.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And another thing is that when I came out, what I loved actually about Vipassana is that it gave me a complete new perspective on life. Because when I came out, life felt so good. Like small things, you know, like drinking a matcha, you know, going to a cafe, hugging a friend, like all the small things, they just felt like the best thing on earth because you start to appreciate the small things in life, the freedom. You start to appreciate, being able to do what you want.
I agree. Like since doing it, I feel a sense of calm. I feel grateful, more of a sense of being grateful for that I even got to do it.
Yeah.
And I feel equanimity is a really big takeaway for me, is as things happen, really just sitting and observing.
Yeah.
And trusting the process. That was another big thing that I've taken away. Trusting the process, sitting, observing, the whole equanimity. They are two big takeaways for me. And just knowing, and that sense of pride, like I said, that accomplishment that I did it, and I be with myself for 10 days.
Yeah.
That's a really nice thing to know. I like my thoughts.
Yeah.
I'm okay with my thoughts. Like, I enjoyed just talking with me for 10 days.
That's so cool. Now that Vipassana is ended, what I'm actually doing, I'm studying more like coaching and psychology to help people get to that sort of state, but without Vipassana, but through using more like scientific techniques, to get to that equanimous mind.
That's your focus, yeah.
That's my focus. So thank you so much for the conversation.
Yeah. It's been awesome talking to you, and it's so nice to speak to other people who have done it.
Exactly.
And share the experience. And although you really can't compare the experiences, it's nice to just hear how someone else's experience was. And it's so nice now that we've both done it to share that, and also to know that I can talk to you about it at any time as well. We both know what that was like.
So let us know, what was your experience if you did it, or if you're just doing it. If you have any questions, like, we're here, we're happy to chat, to help, because
ask us any questions.
I'd
love to do that.